All righty. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this month's Expert Advice webinar. And this is where I sit down with successful attorneys and thought leaders and ask them about topics that'll help law firms grow and succeed. I'm Gabriela Cubeiro, as many of you know, CEO and co-founder of CASEpeer. And today I'm really excited to welcome Zach Herbert, founder and CEO of Herbert Law Group and ZDH Consulting. And we're going to be talking on how to scale your business with process and delegation. So, not universal to law firms exclusively. So, if any of you are joining us and you're not a law firm, don't bounce. Zach was a judge advocate in the Marine Corps after graduating law school and after working for several years at one of the largest personal injury law firms in Texas. He started his own law firm, Herbert Law Group, and signed up for CASEpeer, of course, and started his MBA program, I think, all in the same year. So he's not an ambitious guy at all. But my favorite thing about Zach is that he's a good old-fashioned tech geek, and I'm so excited to have you here to share your wisdom on process and delegation. Welcome, Zach.
Thanks, Gabriella. Great to be here. The one thing you forgot was also had a third child born at exactly the same time. So,
oh, I love it.
Not too many things going on when I started my firm.
I love it. Well, you know, the more the merrier, right? You needed an extra pair of hands on deck.
I think a little bit of motivation helps. A little bit of stress helps. You know, put a new baby in there. Maybe I'll figure it out.
I love it. Well, let's dive right in. So, law firms are a business. So, how does embracing this change the way that you manage your firm? And this is something you and I talk about a lot when we talk.
And, you know, I think that it's probably overused at this point where people say, you know, you need to run your law firm like a business. And lawyers are probably reticent to even try and, you know, I am running my law firm like a business. What does that even mean? You know, but as we all know, when we go to law school, they don't really teach you how to run a law firm. I didn't even know trust account versus operating account until I opened up my own firm. I think what it boils down to, running your law firm like a business is an ego check. I think that's the biggest mind change that you have to go through. And that is, I am not this awesome practicer of the law. I'm running a business, okay? And that ego check, that mind shift into, all right, I'm providing a service and this is what I need. What do I look like when I'm facing the public, when I'm facing my clients? That's the big change, at least generally in your mind. And then the rest of these slides, the rest of this time, we're going to talk about the nitty gritty of what it means to run your law firm like a business. But really the biggest thing is an ego check. You're not great. You're not smarter than everybody else. You just because you got your bar license and you're able to do this doesn't mean that you all of a sudden have it. So that's the biggest one, I think, the ego.
And I would say that this is especially true. Obviously, we have a lot of plaintiffs' attorneys or people from personal injury plaintiffs' firms joining us. And as we know, paralegals, case managers, I mean, they make the world go round. And I know we talk.
They'll love that then. Ego check for the attorney. Yeah.
but it is very important to give those people a shout out, because without them, I mean, a practice wouldn't run like any kind of business or like a law firm, really. So,
right. We're going to get into it a little bit more, I think, in some other slides. But you brought up the paralegals and support staff, and what I found and what I'm finding is a lot of attorneys have been spoiled if they've started at a big firm and they go to a small firm, or started a big firm and they go out on their own, because they don't know how to do some of the basic things like filing, faxing, scanning, those basic things like that. And I think that a lot of attorneys make the mistake of, instead of figuring it out themselves, they hire too early and they hire somebody to do all of that stuff for them. And I think that there's an opportunity for leadership there to be able to know how to do all of these things, from all the way down to sending a certified return receipt letter. If you know how to do it, then when you ask somebody to do it, you know, I think there's just a little bit more buy-in that the person that works for you will have. A little bit more of that ego check once again.
Well, so that brings us into the nitty-gritty, which you teased earlier. So let's dive right into it. So why is it so important for firms and businesses to establish and create processes?
I like to say it this way. Time is all we got. That's all we got. And even though we as personal injury attorneys are not directly selling our time, that's all we got. Even though we're not billing for our time, this is a professional service. And if it's not your time, it's the time of your support staff. And that's worth a lot too. I've had a problem in the past. I've had a problem with people that have come over from the defense side. And the problem that I've come into play is people from the defense side, support staff and attorneys alike, they seem to want to spend a long time on each task because that's how they made money. But as a personal injury attorney, I like to tell those people when they come over, I say, it's exactly the opposite here. The longer you spend on a task, the more money we're losing. You got to think it that way. So it's not like I want you to do everything really crappy and fast, but you have to have that another mindset shift into it's all about time. And so because it's all about time, every time anybody in your entire firm does something, if it can be done faster or more efficiently, then that's money directly in the bank. So that's why it's so important, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I've noticed the same thing when I talk to my, trial defense attorney friends. It's a very different perspective of how they approach work, compared to everyone I talk to on the plaintiff side. So that actually leads perfectly into my next question, which is, as you're operating, and I will also highlight that, although Zach is sharing his perspective as someone who started his firm from scratch and started to build these things, I talk to so many firms that have been around for 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, whatever it may be. These are things that are universal. And there's always a good place, the time to start is now. So even though, it might feel like, hey, this might not resonate with me. I mean, we've been around for years. We have processes for these things. That may not be entirely true. So next question, how do you identify in your day if a task is going to require a more formal process?
I'll be honest, it was a lot easier when it was just me. Now that I have done a good deal of delegating, it becomes harder and harder for me to figure this one out. I can tell you at the beginning, if it took me longer than 10 seconds, I was trying to figure out if there was a way to automate it or to develop a process for later. It was very easy at the beginning. At the beginning, when it was just me, what I did was I imagined that I had every role in the firm, but I assigned myself the tasks based on that. And what I mean is, if I was going to file a lawsuit, I would say I'm going to give it to my paralegal to file. And of course, the paralegal was me. And so I would have a task for the paralegal to file the lawsuit. Then whenever I hired the paralegal, I just grouped those tasks and gave it to her and said, okay, these are all yours now. But they were already mapped out. There was already a how-to on each one of them. And when my paralegal started with me, she had experience. We had worked together before. She hit the ground running. She just had to figure out the system. And then she was off to the races because everything was already written down. I always tell people to read the E-Myth Attorney book. And I know that I've been told there's like an update to it now, and they've written the book over and over again. It's not a hard read. It's very fast. And I think it's old at this point, but it stands the test of time. And the whole point of this book is write it down. If there's a process, if there's a way to do something, write it down. And so the 10 seconds is maybe if it's longer than 10 seconds, I try and figure it out. If I can't, I can't. But now, if there's anything I'm doing, all the way from scheduling, like if somebody says, hey, when can we talk next? I figured out a way to just do that a lot easier than, oh, how's next Wednesday? How's your Thursday? How's your Friday? I use a program called Calendly. And the Calendly, I've built out all of the different ways somebody could ask for my time. And then I have a link for it, and it's in my bookmarks. And then whenever I got somebody to handle my schedule, I gave them all those bookmarks and I said, here you go. You got my calendar. Somebody wants a phone call with me. You send them this link And then it's built into some of the processes that we have throughout litigation for meetings with clients and discovery and mediation and stuff like that.
That makes a lot of sense, and I did drop the eMyth attorney into the chat, so those of you listening in can pull that up. It looks like it's the original edition. Maybe there's a Kindle version now, but you know, and I also loved the visual of you pulling up CASEpeer, and then in every slot having Zach Herbert, Zach Herbert, Zach Herbert, whether you were a case assistant or the lead attorney or litigation attorney. That's awesome. So essentially it's like the 10-minute rule, right? Or even if it's something that's repeatable, if it's something that happens over and over and over again, it's going to be a pain point, and you need to you need to reduce that friction. I
think a really good example of that is the templates. And I have this fight with other attorneys sometimes in that in a template, I can write this letter really quick. You know, I hear that all the time. Just give me the letterhead and I'll type out the letter and I'll send it faster than doing finding the template and then downloading it and then figuring it out which name goes where and or making the template. And so I always say, look, you know, if you spend 3x or 4x or 5x making a template for a letter that you're going to send in every case, then that's how long it'll take for you to get that time back. So if it takes you 10 times as long to create a template than it does for you to just, you know, get the form or type it out yourself, then after 10 times, you're literally saving time each time you send it. And that is, I mean, exponential if you keep on doing that every time you have a letter that you send. So that's the smallest example I can think of is a template. And nobody wants to create those templates. And I got over 100 of them now. Not as many as some people on here, but you know, that's a competition that we constantly have, I think, with us other CASEpeer users. How many templates do you got?
Yeah, that's always there's a good rivalry going on between a couple of people in our Facebook community. And I will do a shout out to any of you joining us that are that are on Facebook and are CASEpeer users. There is a Facebook community where other users share wisdom, ask questions, not necessarily CASEpeer related, but a great place to get together with people who are on the same platform, but also you know, work in the same types of cases. So so you were talking about templates, which I agree, we're all guilty of the thought process of it doesn't take me that much time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you take that 3 minutes or 5 minutes and realistically 10 or 15 minutes and you add and multiply that out across a year, it's a lot of time, especially if you've got multiple people maybe repeating those certain tasks. So what are some other examples? Give me one or two maybe that of processes that you've implemented at your firm, and maybe one that's like accessible, and then one I want you to just geek out on, because again, like you harness so many cool tech tools. I'd love to hear about some of that.
Why don't we do depot prep? I'll talk about the depot preps that I do for every single one of my clients. And this is another example of if you're going to do a volume practice, even if you're not going to do a volume practice, if you're going to do the same type of case over and over again, then you're going to say the same speech every time. You're going to, you know, or at least need to be doing that. And if you can start writing down those speeches that you give those clients or the frequently asked questions in some form, then you know that they're going to get the same information each time. And you have the added benefit of not having to remember all of these conversations. So by the time I get to, you know, mediation, my client on the other side of the table, I'll be like, remember when I told you in your lit meeting this? Well, I don't remember if I told them that or not, but I know that I say the same thing in every meeting. So in the depot prep, it became, oh man, I was doing the same thing each time in the depot prep. So the whole process goes something like that. I have a Calendly link and we send a text to there's a task once it's moved into the deposition phase. The task is send the Calendly link to the client. Client gets the link, they schedule a depot prep through Calendly. Now, Calendly allows them to choose. Do they want to do it in person, Zoom, phone call, FaceTime, Skype? All of those are available to them. it's interesting. Most of the clients just say, oh, just, Zoom or a phone call. Not a lot of people still want to come in person, even before the pandemic. I found it interesting. If I gave them the opportunity, they're like, no, we'll just do it over the phone. And then when they're done scheduling, they get updates, they get reminders, they get an SMS text message 3 days before, they get an email 1 day before. Hey, you've got this coming up. All of this used to be something somebody who scheduled for me used to do. A lot of no-shows. I know everybody, that's here right now knows about no-shows. You schedule something with somebody, they don't show up, they've wasted your time. And remember, it's all we got is time. So the Calendly auto reminders are so great for that. Then when it comes time for the actual phone call, I have a template, and the template is a depot prep letter to the client. The depot prep letter is 1 page. It pretty much says all of my rules for going to a deposition. I'm pretty much going to say everything that's on this piece of paper. And then the second page is a list of all of their medical providers and the amount of their medical bills, which this is pulling from an auto template from CASEpeer. And so what I do is I give them the speech, same speech I give everybody, answer any questions they may have. And then I send that as an attachment to an email. And I use a program called Text Expander. Whenever I send emails, I have a shortcut, and this one is DPE. If I write the letters DPE in a body of an email, all of a sudden my depot prep email pulls up. There's a little blank, and I write the client's name in it, and then I hit enter, and it says, hey, it was great talking to you just now. Here's attached what I told you I was going to attach. Remember, if you're nervous, you just give me a call. I'm going to make sure I make the time for you before your depot. I want you to be nice and prepared. So this is an email that now everybody gets, even though it's a form email, and it's also the attachment. Even though it's a form attachment, it's special to them. It's tailored to them because it has their own medical providers and their own medical bills on it, and it says their name at the top of the email. Boom. So I do that. That's a process that I do now for every case, for every depot prep. And I think it's a pretty accessible one to do.
That's awesome. And I'm not familiar with text expander. Is it something that do you email directly out of it? Is it something that's like an extension that fits into your Gmail, or how do you harness that?
So Text Expander is a standalone software that you download, and it is subscription based. And what you get with is, I think you don't even have to do the subscription if you don't want to, but the subscription allows you to go cross-platform. So work computer, home computer, they even have a thing for your phone, an iPad, and it works in the background. And so anytime, no matter what environment you're in, if you're in an email, if you're in a text message, I use it for text messages through CASEpeer. You just type in your shortcut, whatever your shortcut may be, and it pops it in. And it has the ability to get a little complicated. You can do a little bit of simple math with it, calendar math. You can say, if day plus 30. So it'll give you returns on stuff like that if you want to get really complicated, or you can just do, simple emails, at least to start.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, I know, I think most recently there was a request I saw pop up in the community about text templates, because a lot of times, obviously case assistants, paralegals, a lot of times they're doing appointment reminders or just checking in, how was your MRI? And these things do get repetitive. So I love that suggestion. And I love hearing about ways that you're already harnessing technology to do that. So so this kind of goes into an open-ended question. If there's any particular technology that you use, what are your favorite tools to implement and to track processes? And I don't know if you can pick favorites, but talk to me about it.
Yeah, that's tough. I will tell you that I love Slack. And if you don't know what Slack is, you should just download it because it's free. And I don't pay for it. I know that if I did, it would save all of the old messages for me to go through. But
as attorneys, do attorneys really need to save old messages? I think most people don't have an appetite for that. But I will say, hopefully, I don't have to add a link to Slack. We should all have at least have heard of that one.
I'm hoping that everybody's heard of Slack. I use it for interoffice communication and a notification platform, just notifications. Yeah, I encourage my employees not to work out of Slack, because you can work out of Slack. You can create reminders to do things. You can even share files and documents. You can't edit things inside of it, but it's a pretty cool platform. But just for all of us older guys, you just think of like AIM, like like a chat messenger, like a group, chat group. Is that what we called it back then? Anyway, chat room.
I think
so.
Chat room, yeah.
That's what it's kind of like.
I love AIM.
And I use it in conjunction with a couple of different tools. One of them is Zapier, which I talk about Zapier all the time. And Zapier is just a no-code automation software. And what no-code means is eventually we're not going to need people to actually write code for us anymore. All the code will be written. And it's just a matter of pushing buttons or putting blocks together. And that's what it is. As long as another program that's out there is cloud-based, meaning it's on the internet somewhere, and it's got an open platform, you can plug and play a bunch of different things. And it's just if this and that. If this happens, which is called a trigger in Zapier, then do this. One of the examples that I have for my Zapier triggers is if I get an email from the court, an e-file email, then it puts a notification in Slack. So if I get this, then that, it puts a notification in Slack. What's great is it cuts down on the emails that you have to go through in your inbox. I'm an inbox zero guy. I want there to be no emails in my inbox. I delete them when I do something with them, or I move them to a folder. It's kind of a getting things done.
Ooh, that's tough.
Version. Yeah, I recommend Getting Things Done. Is another good book if you want to read that. I follow kind of my own version of that. And everything goes through Slack instead, especially the notification stuff. And then I've got a lot of automations through Zapier to put documents into folders, inboxes, that sort of thing, faxes, email attachments, e-filing. We got a lot of documents that come in. And so I use Zapier to automate the filing system. I think I have done so many zaps for my automation of my filing system that I can probably tell you that I've replaced one person with all of the automations that I've created. So I think that I've saved my firm the salary of one employee that Zapier is accomplishing now.
And I'll highlight that's at, a scale that if you take this to the next year or 2 years of where your firm is headed, that's going to add up to quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Exponential, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, again, when we're talking about how are we going to scale, right? Mm-hmm. And people are loving the book recommendations, so keep those going. I've got my Amazon window open to drop those links in. So one thing that I want to really dig into, and I've got one question here, but maybe we expand on it a little bit. I know from, starting my own business that sometimes when you try to implement new processes and new systems, and sometimes you experience resistance. Have you ever experienced that? And do you maybe have any advice on how to handle it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yes, resistance is everywhere. I think that there's going to be two different types of resistance that you're going to find as you grow and hire. One is going to be from attorneys, and it's that ego check that I talk about. I have another attorney now, and I have a third one starting soon. And it's interesting leading attorneys versus leading support staff. Leading attorneys, a lot of times you have to say, you could just scan that and send it yourself. I have seen attorneys that are incredibly not people that work here, but I've seen attorneys that are incredibly inefficient. And you bring them on, and if they need something done, you can just watch the gears just completely come to a halt. Attorneys that don't know how to file, or don't know how to scan, or don't know how to send an email, don't know how to attach things. So imagine if I'm speaking about you, or I'm speaking about somebody that's in your firm, you got to gently nudge into the 21st century and say, you can do this. You should be doing this yourself, because every time you have to send an email or a fax, you're asking somebody who's paid X number of dollars an hour to stop what they're doing to be able to do it for you. And you could just do it yourself. Kind of a gentle nudge, I would say. But I have a specific situation that happened. We've gone through a few growing pains. We lost a lost a paralegal, and everything went back to my main paralegal for her to do. And she's a tough person. And so she's just like, I just want to close the door to my office and I just want to do it. Just, leave me alone, kind of a thing. Just give me all of it and I'm just going to do it all. And I was like, I have this person that is a paralegal certificate person that is currently working in another role, but she can do this job, but we have to train her, and you're going to have to take time to train her. And of course, what was the response? I don't have time to train someone. I've got too much to do. And
how many, I know we can't ask for a show of hands. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like every single person in the Zoom has heard that before, or has even been the one to say it, right?
I don't have time to train, right? Yeah. And you don't. And you're right. You don't have time to train. But not training means that's more of your time taken away in the future. It sucks. It's one of those, you got to put in the work now to be able to relax in the future. And so, yeah, you're right. You don't have time to train, but you have to. You got no choice. You got to train. You got to spend the time training right now, because it's an exponential return on that time. Exponential. And like I said at the beginning, it's all about time. If it takes you an hour to train someone to write a new petition or to set up discovery, and you could have set up 3 sets of discovery in that hour, you're not going to want to do that. But if that hour means that person now knows how to set up discovery, they could be setting up discovery all day and get 36 sets done while you're filing petitions. And then now you're starting to speak a language that people understand. They're like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So I'll spend the hour teaching them how to do that so that I don't have to do it in the future. And I've had to tell myself that too.
Yeah. And I like the idea of providing examples, especially to sort of encourage and motivate team members. I think when you break it down into numbers, it makes a lot of sense for people.
Yeah.
And that's actually perfect. We're going to jump into the delegation portion here, which, gosh, that's tough. I know that's tough. I'm excited to dig into it. Before we do, one question too, when we talk about process, is if you realize or note that something that's isn't working, and I'd love to see if you have any insights on maybe what's a flag that it's not working, but do you have any advice on how to pivot?
Yeah, I mean, pivot. I pivot immediately. If I find something's not working and I obsessively change it, I don't know if that's practical for anybody else that's listening, but I've just stayed up all night revamping a process before, and it's because I think obsess is the only word that I can think of. I obsess over these things. I obsess over once I have an idea of how I can make it better or how I can make it more efficient, I'm not able to do anything until I've fleshed that out. And so I listen to the feedback from my staff. If they're like, hey, the text messages are showing up in 2 different channels right now, I'm like, okay, I'll fix it. I got a grease board with stuff that I needed to fix. This is the next delegation piece for me, hopefully someday soon, where I'm not actually the IT guy of my law firm. I've got somebody who can do these things, and I need to be able to delegate it out. Somebody that can just obsess over efficiencies. But I think that's a little bit farther away than I would like it to be. So that's what I do. I change it. I immediately change and obsess over it until it's right. I don't know if that's the best way of doing it.
No. I'd say maybe some of that obsession is unique to you, but I'd say in general, as business owners or as leaders, or even if you're just a leader on your team, whatever your role is, one thing that I've learned is that, things never stay the same. Your team dynamic changes, you have an employee leave, or you hire 3 new people. And inevitably, what worked yesterday may not work today. So I would also just, in general, what you're communicating and what I would love people to walk away with is that just because something was working and was great doesn't mean that it will be 6 months from now or a week from now. So also be open to continually developing and changing these processes if you notice something's off. And you might hear about a cool piece of technology today that you're like, okay, well, now we have to go back and change this process because there's a better way to do things.
Yeah, I like that. Not being complacent, not just being, oh, it's fine. I demo new software all the time. Whenever I hear about something new, and I demo it just to see if I could use it or implement, or could it do it better than what I'm doing right now? Because I'm always on the lookout for a way to make us more efficient.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I know you said you're going to talk about Zapier a little bit more. Do we want to save that for later? We have a question coming up from Michael. What Zapier integrations do you use?
My list of integrations is very long, but I can tell you that I'm heavily leveraging Slack and Dropbox and Office 365 for a lot of my zaps.
And that's because it can read like one of the coolest things I think you did your first time using CASEpeer was you had an email that CASEpeer was sending you, and based on that email, you had it trigger a notification to Slack, for example. So like that Office 365, is that kind of how you're harnessing it?
Yes and no. I mean, on the Office 365, well, it's actually more IMAP. It can log into your email for you through Office 365. So if you have a shared email address that you use for faxes, for instance, you can go and trigger it so that you sign into the email, and then you say, when you get a new email, you take the attachment and you put the attachment into the faxes channel of Slack. So everybody sees we got a new fax. And now that I've got different fax numbers, I've got a pre-lit fax and a lit fax. And
can it even take the attachment and drop it in there? So someone just download it from there, or do they have to go to the inbox?
Yes. Yeah.
See, now we're geeking out.
Yeah. It shows it, the preview of like a little icon of the document in the channel, and you can click on it and you can read through the whole thing. But like I said, Slack is a notification system only. So the other step of the Zapier automation is it takes that same attachment and it saves it into the inbox. So we've got a litigation inbox and a pre-litigation inbox, and people that are in lit get copied all the things that get put into that inbox, and people that are in pre-lit get copied all the things that get put into that inbox. Then we have a to be filed folder where it's copied again into, and from there that's moved into the client folders that we have, last name, first name, which we set up through CASEpeer. And that is a piece that I'd like to automate a little bit better. But right now it's a physical drag and drop by somebody else. So everybody else's inbox has a copy. There's a copy in Slack. So everybody else can see it, delete it if they don't need to do anything with it. But if they do, then they can create a task for themselves, put something on the calendar, make a reminder. And it's just that's part of the workflow of how we get things done.
I love that. Very cool.
I am testing a new CASEpeer integration. Am I allowed to talk about this?
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it. Let the cat out of the bag.
This is real nerd out right here. I'm testing CASEpeer's Zapier integration. So I've made the most complicated Zap I have ever made with this. So this is what it does. So right now, the only trigger can be a case status change. That's what the integration does right now. And when it sees that a case has changed the status, then it will return a lot of information. It'll say you get the email address of the client, you get the client's name, you get who is the lead attorney on the case, you get all sorts of information like that. So I've made it so that the end result is for a set number of case statuses, not all case statuses, but just a set number of them, it sends out an email automatically to the client. Hey, your case has been changed to this status. Here's what it means. Here's a YouTube video of Zach talking about it. And it also sends a Slack notification in a new channel that just says, hey, John Smith got a new email saying their case has been changed to treating. The reason that I did that is because if we accidentally change the case status to something and we need to change it back, we need to call the client or text them or say something like, hey, disregard that email. Sorry, that was an accident. It is, once again, it's just a notification system that, hey, the client just got an auto email. In case somebody calls up and goes, what's this email I just got? We got an idea of what had just happened. And so I built out all these emails, and I recorded it myself and all the YouTube videos already. I'd already had it done.
I mean, you just got this integration before Thanksgiving. I hope your family saw you, at least on over the dinner table when you weren't recording videos.
It's an obsession. It was an obsession.
Yeah.
I had already done the videos because one of the processes that we have is the task that tells whoever is on the case to send the link to the YouTube video when it changes to treating, when it changes to lit initiated, when it changes to discovery. So these videos were already there. And so I already had the copy. I already had the videos. I just needed to create the emails. And then I do it by a system of paths. So when a case status changes, it goes into the path system in Zapier and it says, hey, for treating, pending demand, and demanded, send it to A. For these other 4, send it to B. And then A is pre-lit. And so, because you can only do 5 paths at a time. So for pre-lit, it says, okay, if it's treating, send the treating email. If it's pending demand, send the pending demand email. I wrote the emails through MailChimp, and then I exported them to HTML, and then I copy and pasted the HTML into the Zapier, because you can only write an HTML in the Zapier code. So
so I will warn everyone. So Zach is testing the Zapier integration. We are expecting it to be out before the end of the year. So yes, a Christmas present for those of you that celebrate. And we're rolling out additional features for the additional zaps that are called, I believe. And so we started with case status change that Zach has kindly been testing for us and providing feedback. And then we'll be rolling out additional functionality there too for those of you that want to build it out. And we'll have Zach back to do a dedicated webinar just on the integration. He'll show how he's built out some of those apps. And so stay tuned and keep an eye on your inbox for more information on that. So let's dive into delegation. So why is it important? I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but as always, I want to hear your perspective.
It's time. It's time. It's time. When I went to business school, part-time, when I was in my first year of running my own firm, I had kind of the epiphany, because I'm at business school. My class is full of people from all different industries. And I realized that the practice of law and running a business and the practice of law is the most inefficient way of making money. It is. I'll argue this point with anybody else. It's so inefficient because you've only got your time to be able to sell. We're not selling t-shirts. We're not selling a product. We're not selling real estate. We're not selling anything like that. We're selling our time. And so it's always boils down to the attorney's time. No matter how many people you have working for you, no matter how many attorneys you have working for you, it's still a set number of hours in each day. That's all you got. So I was jealous of these people who were selling t-shirts in real estate, because I thought you can scale these businesses so much easier as long as you've got a product and the demand for it. And so that's why delegation becomes so important, because all you've got is time. And you can, I mean, shoot, look at the big personal injury firms and look at law firms that do any practice of law, the ones that are multi state, the ones that are multinational, that are global. They have thousands of attorneys. They have thousands upon thousands of support staff, and they have to do it that way. They can't run a global law firm with 3 attorneys. You just can't do it. It's impossible, right? Mm-hmm. And same thing with a personal injury law firm. You can't take on more than 100 cases with one person. You got to start hiring, and that's why delegation is so important, because I think that it's a direct return on your money and your time.
Yeah, there's zero way or zero chance of scaling without it, right? And the reason I like talking about it in conjunction with process is that process, you're doing it the best, tying it together with time, but it's kind of the same thing, right? You're either in a position where you can delegate tasks, or you're in a position where you can make it more efficient with the way that those tasks are being handled.
Yeah, and I like to kind of, maybe it's gossip, but I don't consider it to be gossip. I consider it to be my own case studies, and I ask people how they do things in their law firm, or I ask people how their boss runs things, or what do you see? What do you do? I do a lot of things the opposite of what I have seen and what I've been told in many different areas of my life, not just my law firm, but it's kind of learning from other people's mistakes. I run a practice on small personal injury cases, mostly car wrecks. Some would call it a volume practice model. Some would say volume is bad. I say volume is great, and as long as we're giving a great product to each and in every client, and I think that we are. And so I have heard different numbers thrown around, but what I keep ending up with is around 50. 50 is the number. And what's that number? That is the number of cases per person that works at your law firm. It doesn't matter what that person does, from the receptionist to the attorney, everybody counts as one. And so count everybody in your office right now, divided by the number of cases that you have. And do you have 50? And if you have less than 50, then I would tell you you're probably doing okay. If it's 150 per person, then I would tell you you should consider hiring someone. Maybe there's some position. You should see where the bottleneck is in your case. You probably already know where the bottleneck is. Is it medical records? Mm-hmm. Is it filing lawsuits? Is it intake? Where's the bottleneck? There probably is one if you have over 150 cases per person that works there. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's not, oh my gosh, you got 51, right? It's not like that at all. But it has been a very good guide, and I completely forgot where I got that number from. But I've done a lot of polling of my other friends mm-hmm. that run law firms, and it's a fairly accurate number. It's pretty close.
I like that. That's very helpful. And now I'm thinking back, and I'll be definitely asking around to clients and friends that I talk to see where their firms are at.
Yeah. Hey, and if anybody's listening, prove me wrong or prove me right, post it in the chat. What's the ratio? What do you got? What's the number of mm-hmm. cases per employee? I'd be very interested to know, do I need to change my number? Do I need my number to be mm-hmm. higher or lower? Let's compare. It's not sharing too much, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I love that. So when did you first realize that you needed to delegate more? And that might have just been on day one, but I'm curious if you had personal bottlenecks that you experienced where you identified that you needed to start delegating or bring on a new person.
Well, I immediately started because my wife was helping me at the very beginning. And so she's a teacher by trade. And now I kind of laugh. It's over 4 years later, and we can be driving somewhere, and she'll say something that's just the nomenclature was not there. Like, I would come home from my last job and start to talk about what I did for that day, and her eyes would just glaze over. She didn't understand anything I was saying. But now all the terminologies, everything, she understands it all because she's been working in this industry now for 4 years, and she knows it. But I started with things like the settlements and medical records requesting. I taught her how to request medical records, and she was off to the races on requesting medical records. The very first official hire, so that was great because she was free. At least on the books, she was free. So it was a great first hire, if you will. But the first real hire was my paralegal, and it was because I was very heavy on litigation cases, very light on pre-litigation cases, and I couldn't get it all done in the day. That was my goal, of course, was to work until burnout or right before burnout, and then hire somebody to take on that process or those processes that I had developed. It was so cool because once I hired her, trained her, and gave her all of those tasks that I had already built out, I, for the first time, sat down at my computer and looked at my tasks, and I didn't have any for that day, for just like a day. I was like, wow, this is great. I have to go and look for something to do. I gotta go figure something out.
No doubt you found it, but
yeah, for at least a day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And is this the same paralegal that stars in some of your social media videos?
That's Jessica. She's
All right.
she's a staple in all the social media TikToks and everything that I'm doing now, or at least I'm trying to
So
do.
if any of you are interested in marketing, I definitely encourage you guys to go check out the Zach's law firm, Herbert Law Group. Is it on Instagram? Or are you guys on TikTok too?
We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, I still don't get the TikTok thing. I haven't gotten more than like 1,000 views on something, but one of these days I'm going to go viral for some stupid video that I make. And every CLE I go to, I got another attorney telling me they got cases from TikTok. I'm here to tell you I'm trying, but I haven't gotten any. But I'm going to still post on TikTok.
Well, we'll have you back with some of our other clients that love TikTok and talk about it once you score that $1 million case. You know. So question, do you have any delegation blunder? I love to learn from people's mistakes, and I know all of us do. Did you feel like you ever went wrong with something, or any advice on how to roll things like that out?
Yeah, I think that my biggest blunder was I wrote down too fast, too furious. So like, going, like I said, I'm an obsessive compulsive person, I think. And I'm just self-diagnosed, and same thing with ADHD, completely self-diagnosed. But I have to remember a couple of things. I have to remind myself of this. I have to remind myself that not everybody's wired the same way as me. And I also have to remind myself that nobody is going to care as much as me, because this is not their business. They're not going to care as much as me. And this goes back to running a law firm like a business. Unfortunately, the only thing that we can't do when we're running our law firm as a business is we can't give equity to people that are not lawyers, at least right now. And I think that is a huge part of motivating. It's not all of it, but it's a huge part of motivating employees in any organization to have buy-in, is to be able to have literal buy-in. And we can't do that in law firms, and you can't tie their salaries to, settlements. And if they're not an attorney, all those rules that we got to follow. So I have to remind myself, I'm not going to get people that love it as much as me or that care as much as me. It still gets me when 5 o'clock rolls around and people start going home. I'm like, what are you going home for?
There's work to be done.
You want to stay here all day with me? But I never say that. I think the biggest blunder I've had is expecting my level from people when I delegate something to them, expecting the same level as me. Now, when I get my level and above, I make sure to, shower them with praise, because it's very few and far between that you get that. But when you delegate, I think that unless you're close to burnout like I was, and they're actually going to do it better than you, which has happened to me too, you got to relax just a little bit and let them get into the groove and let them get the work product level that they're going to give you.
I actually love that you said that last part, because when you said the first part, my follow-up was going to be, that might make people fearful of delegating, right? That's the hardest part, is that you think, I can do it best. Yeah, but you can't do it all if you're going to scale. But I also love that you mentioned that at some point, you just can't do it all, right? And at some point, it's going to affect the work product, and you've just got to delegate. And the sooner you do it, or I guess one of the other biggest blunders people can make is leaving it too long.
There's that too.
It's going to get harder.
And I guess we always talk about scale, but as if it's not an option and you have to, but you don't have to. You don't have to scale if you don't want to, but you're going to have to start turning away cases. At that point, you're going to have to, you're going to get to a point and you got to stop, and then you got to look around and say, is this what I like? Am I comfortable with this? Because I can do it all. I got 80 cases, I can do everything. But if you're not, and I think about that sometimes too. I'm like, oof, what if everybody quit right now? Would my wife and I be able to handle all of the work that we have right now? Well, I think one of us would have to go and pick up the kids from school eventually. And maybe we could trade off on sleep. You get to sleep tonight and I'll sleep tomorrow night. Those are the conversations my wife and I have.
I love it. That must make dinner time interesting, especially with 4 kids on top of all that. So I don't know how you guys do it. So all right, one question. So we scared people a little bit about delegation, but can you share a delegation win with us?
Oh, here's my favorite delegation win is when a case gets signed up and I have no idea who that person is, right? I haven't talked to them. They haven't emailed, nobody's emailing me anything. And I get a Slack notification on my phone, and I get a Slack notification on my phone when someone signs through HelloSign, because HelloSign has a Zapier integration too. And I have HelloSign through CASEpeer. And so whenever somebody signs our sign-up contract through HelloSign, it pops up into the HelloSign channel, and it says sign-up package was just signed. And I love seeing that on my phone. That's my best. That's the best one. When I see cases get signed up and I'm, sitting at home watching TV and a case just got signed up. Like that's the best delegation win. And I have to stop and appreciate it because I didn't have to hassle or call or answer any questions for that to have happened.
Yeah, I remember that from starting CASEpeer back when we launched. Like I knew every single client's name, every single member of their staff, or the first X number of law firms. And when that started to slip away, it's a very strange and satisfying / scary feeling, I think, in some ways. And obviously we've come a long way since then.
It's true.
But yeah, it's an extraordinary feeling when you're starting and growing a business like that. Yeah. So we talked a lot about time, and this is our last question. So I will give everyone a warning. Feel free to jump into the questions box or into the chat. We have a few more minutes with Zach, so we'll take as much time of his that he'll give us. So feel free to drop questions in. But my last question is, we've talked about time. We know that process and delegation are time consuming. If someone is just starting out their firm, they signed the papers last week, they have 3 cases, now's the time to start. You have time, start implementing processes. For people that are further along, that this might seem very daunting because they've got a full caseload, what's your advice to people that might be holding back?
I think it's like what I said at the very beginning. It's check your ego is the advice there. And that's hard. Lawyers are interesting. We go to CLEs where people tell us to be more real. And I know that all of us have heard that at a CLE at one point in time, be it a marketing CLE, be it at a litigation CLE. Somebody's up on stage and they're saying, you need to be yourself, right? It's a platitude at this point. And I mean, they've dedicated full 3-week retreats to attorneys trying to figure out how to be real, because law school probably messed us up a little bit, and probably the first 2 jobs or so. And we have to figure out how to be a lawyer, and we figure out how to be ourselves because we've mastered the art of how to be a lawyer. Like there's a specific way to be a lawyer. So the egos are big. And that's what I mean when I say check your ego. What I mean is you're great, but you might not be the best. Okay. A little hard truth there. You might not be the best person for this task, for this job. You have strengths and weaknesses. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses. Take a personality test. It'll tell you. And so you got to be real honest with yourself, and you got to figure out, what am I good at? What do I like? And then build those processes around the stuff that you hate to do. I particularly really hated sitting through depositions when I wasn't talking. So presenting my client for deposition, plaintiff depositions. I hate them so much. It's a time thing, right? Especially when they take longer than 2 hours for a car wreck case. I'm like, I could be doing so many other things, but I have to pay attention. So when I got another attorney, there's an ego thing, because you gotta get another attorney that's going to do stuff. They might not do it the way you like them to do it, but you're not sitting through a 2-hour depo anymore. So that's the practice of law. And
now I hope you warned them. I hope you warned them that they'd be sitting through a lot of depositions.
Yeah. This is what I hate to do. This is what you're going to be doing. But once again, it's all about that time. And every time he sits through a 2-hour deposition, I just love to, kind of like, walk around, enjoy myself, go get a
Oh,
snack.
I don't believe that for a in a heartbeat. Yeah, for a second. So yeah, I mean, and I think we kind of alluded to this earlier, right? That two things. One, if you have a takeaway from today with Zach, it's not necessarily that you have to go and write the world's most complicated Zapier integration, right? It can feel daunting when you think that implementing automation means you need to start doing 10 different things, right? But whether you're going back to your firm and your day and you're looking at the one thing you hate to do the most, or the one piece that feels like it's part of your firm's process that's the biggest bottleneck, it can be as basic as implementing Calendly. Like if you're trying to set up time with co-counsel, how many emails are exchanged setting things like that up? Calendly, I will tell you, is something that you can turn on in 10 minutes. So don't start somewhere and chip away at it. It's an ongoing process. It's not something that needs to happen overnight. But pick something. And I guarantee every single person on this call, including myself, has something that they can improve in terms of whether it's process driven or it's delegation. And Zach, I'm sure you still have plenty of things that you're looking to delegate to others.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, the IT stuff would be really nice next, because my employees joke that they need IT, and that's me. You know, like I need to get one of those big trucker hats, and one says IT on it, and then have the different roles, and physically put the trucker hat on to go.
Just as you walk out the door, you've got your hat rack, and depending on where you're headed, you can pop the different hat on.
Literally wearing a lot of hats. Yes, I'm such a corny person that I would actually do that.
I think there's a Christmas present in the works. I'll let your wife know. So Zach, this barely scratches the surface of where people can find you. One thing I wanted you to mention as well, I spoke about this in the intro, but you also do some, again, in all your free time, you also do consulting for law firms and other businesses. Can you tell me a little bit about that? If anyone's interested, I know you're going to reach out to them. I don't want people to feel like they are immediately going to get charged if they send you an email. I don't think it's anything like that, but you're just a font of knowledge and have lots of great ideas. Tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. I have a website. It's zherbertconsulting.com, and it's another part of the delegation process. What I've done is I've put a lot of the stuff that I help people do up on that website, where you can purchase it piecemeal. I plan on doing some more videos, some how-to videos. Probably going to do a few things on Zapier in the near future, so that I'm delegating, the time that I used to spend telling people how to do things. But you can still buy my time, and I can tell you how to do things if you want. But zherbertconsulting.com is that website, and I'm trying to post more content up there so that I can get more videos out there, more how-tos out there, so everybody can be a little bit more efficient each day. So you have any questions, of course, the email is up there, zach@zdhinjury.com, or so you can send me a message through the consulting website. Hit me up on Instagram. I'm easy to find. Just Zach Herbert attorney and Google thing, and you'll find me. I'm all over the place. I don't have like a disconnected from the grid. I'll never be able to do that. I think my pictures everywhere.
I don't know how people do that. I sometimes I wish, but I too am easy to find, so I relate. And look, I really appreciate you. You're always just one of my favorite webinar guests. I love the way that you approach things, and again, we're excited to have you back probably in the next month or two to feature Zapier and to show off some of the exciting things that you're building there, harnessing the CASEpeer Zapier application. So thank you.
Happy to do it. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Take care, everyone.